Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and today we're going to build a Chrome extension together. So let's get started. So here you can see I have a browser window open. This is Vivaldi. It's a Chrome based browser. So you can use Chrome or any Chrome based browser, but this is what I'm using. I like to work with Vivaldi, so here we are. But this will work with any Chrome based browser. As you can see, I have opened Vivaldi colon / extensions. So this is the page where where you can see all the installed extensions, and this will be the, where we will control our extension. So before you start developing, you have to enable the developer mode by clicking on this switch here. So you enable this, and now the developer mode is enabled, and it will let me load unpacked extensions. So I'm going to show you what we're going to build today. I already have built it. So I'm just going to show you a demo. So I click on load unpacked. I go to projects, personal scroller. So this is the extension and select it. And you can see, now I can see this extension here and it's enabled. You can enable and disable the extension from here. The extension that we are going to build today is a very simple extension. What it allows you to do is you can go to any web page, and then it will allow you to auto scroll that web page at a certain speed. You can stop the scrolling at any point of time, and you can increase its speed or decrease its speed. So enough talking, let's see it in action. So if I go to unsplash.com. So for example, if I click on this link, you'll see the Unsplash website, and it has like a lot of images, right? So for example, if I want to scroll, and for whatever reason, I want to like really scroll through all the website, what I can go and do is I can click on this extension. You can see that it's in our browser. And now I can control the scroll speed and start and stop the scroll. So for example, if I click on start, it will start auto scrolling the web page. If I click on stop, it will stop scrolling the web page. Now again, if I click on start and if I increase the speed to medium, it will start scrolling in a medium speed. And then if I make it fast, then it will start moving in a fast speed, and we'll just keep scrolling because this website like keeps loading as it scrolls. You can see, it will keep scrolling, and it will load new content. I can make it slow again by just clicking on the slow button, or can stop it using this button. So this is the demo of the extension that we are going to building today together. So let's dive in the code. Before we start working on the extension, we have to define a file called manifest.json, which is a very important file because it holds the metadata about your extension. So let's create it. I'm going to create a new file called manifest.json, and I'm going to define some keys inside it. So I'm going to define name and scroller v2, and then I'm going to define its version, which is 1.0, right? And then I'm going to define a description, scroller v2, and then the manifest version, which is 3. So manifest version, we have like a couple of manifest versions. So previously the de facto was the second manifest version, but now we have the manifest version 3, which is like more secure and have like more functionality for the extensions. Now, because as you was able to see in our demo, that we have a pop-up. So whenever you click on that extension icon, it will open a pop-up. So we have to define that, and we have to tell Chrome that, we have an action. So That's what we define in the action property. So I'm going to create an action property, and then in the action property, I'm going to define the icon, the title, and the pop-ups. And the pop-up will be like a HTML file. So let's do that. So I'm going to define the default icon. We don't have the icon in our project right now, but we'll be importing one. You can use like any kind of icon you want, but the way to define it, and make sure that it's a PNG or a JPG, because the WebM and the SVG format is not supported by Chrome at the moment for the icon as a of extension. So icon.png will have a PNG file, and you have to define it like in multiple widths. I'm just going to use one file, but if you want, you can use multiple different files. So it's 3248 and 128 icon.png. Then we're going to define its default pop-up. So it will be default pop-up.html, and then there will be a title which will be scroller v2. You'll be able to see this automation or this autocomplete in the code. That is just GitHub Copilot I'm using, and it just let me autocomplete in a smarter way. So yeah, so we have name, version, description, manifest version, action, and icon in the pop-up and title. So let's create this icon and the HTML file. So I'm going to create this HTML file, popup.html. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to import the icon to this project. So now we have the icon, we have the pop-up, and we have the manifest. Now let's define some HTML in the manifest. So I'm going to start with iDoctype HTML, and it will try to give me like a, try to autocomplete it, but I'm not going to use it right now. So I'm just going to do, just close this HTML tag, and then I'm going to create head where we will write our CSS, and then a body where we will write all the HTML that we need, right? And I'm going to define some CSS properties and meta and stuff. So let's get started. I'm giving some style. So I'm going to give a body, and then font size to 40 pixels just to make it like look good. And then the line height to just, keep a good distance between the line heights. And then I'm going to give some margin so it doesn't give itself, some margin. So, and now let's start creating the HTML. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to give it a class called pop-up container. And then inside this pop-up container, there will be a h1, which will say scroller settings. So it will be like all of our settings. So h1, and then I'll go and create another div, because now we have like two settings, right? So one is scroll speed and the other one is the start stop. And I'm just going to create that. I'm going to create a p, we'll call that scroll speed. And then I'm going to create like 3 buttons for the speed. So the first button will be button ID will be scroll speed. I'm going to create, so it will be slow. And then I'm going to create scroll speed. I don't think we really need to give it an ID, but yeah, let's remove that. We're not going to be using ID, but what I'm going to give it is a data speed. So it's like a custom attribute which we can, whenever we click on this button, we can get like what is the attribute, and then we know that, oh, the slow button is clicked or the medium button is clicked. So I'm just going to create slow, and then we'll let GitHub Copilot do its magic and it will just autocomplete everything for me. Medium, fast. So now we have like all this button. Now we're going to create another dev. I'm just going to copy and paste this. And that will be our start and stop buttons, like the start and stop section. So I'm just going to name it start and stop. Right, and there will be two buttons. The first one will be start and the second one will be stop. And instead of data speed, because it's not actually speed, I'm just going to name it data action. So data action, and it's instead of slow and medium, it will be start and stop. So start and stop. Makes sense, right? And I'm going to give some CSS. So let's see like how this looks before we go any further. So we'll go to Vivaldi, and firstly and foremost I'll remove this because this is like something I built before this. So I'm just going to remove this and I'm going to click on load unpacked, and then I'm going to load our extension, which is scroller YT, and select it, and you'll see like now you can see it and you can see the icon here. So if we go here and click on this, this is how it looks right now, right? But yeah, I mean, you can see the buttons and everything. And yeah, so let's like, make it a bit beautiful. So I'll go here and write the CSS for H1, and let's make it like a bit bigger, like 1.5 EM, and make it like bold. I think it will be like bold by default, so I'm gonna do anything there. I'll just remove the padding, so I don't think we need it. Then we have like P, which is like the subheadings, and I'll just make its padding a bit bigger like this, and let's see how that looks now. So in order to reload this, what you have to do is go ahead and you'll see this reload button, and you just click on this and reload, and then you go here and just open it, and this is something how it looks like, right? So the other thing is like it's like very narrow, so let's just make it a bit bigger. So I'm just going to go here and make its width, not the body, but like the pop-up container width. So we have like the class pop-up container. So pop-up container width to be 250 pixel, and let's see how that looks. Just go here, click on reload, click on this. This is how it looks, but what I really want is the padding, right? Like it's not really looking good, so I'm going to give it some padding, which is like, let's give it 1 EM, and go here, reload this, and this is how it looks like, right? Let's change the font family to sans serif, and I think it will look much better than that. So go here, font family, we'll just make it sans serif, and let's see how that looks. And this is how it looks, right? It looks pretty good. And now let's go ahead and get started on actually writing the JavaScript code. So let's start writing some JavaScript. So I'm going to create a script called pop-up.js. I'm going to add it here. /pop up.js. I'm going to create a file called popup.js here. So before we start writing code in popup.js, I like to explain different areas of an extension. So there are like 3 main different areas. One is popup, the other one is content scripts, And the third one is the background. All right. So the pop-up, the content script, and the background, they all work in their own context. So if you want to send a message, or if you want to control, for example, content script from pop-up, you have to send messages to pop-up, and in the pop-up you have to listen to those messages. We are not going to cover background scripts in this video, but yeah, man, so those are not really important right now. So pop-up is like what you see in when you click on the extension icon here in the browser. So this is the pop-up basically, and whatever happens inside it, this is the pop-up, and the pop-up.js is going to take care of what will happen when you click on this. But the content script is the actual script which will be injected in the browser, in the web page, and then it will control the web page. So from content scripts, you can control the web page, and from pop-up, you can like show this UI, which, from whenever you click on these buttons or like whatever UI you have, you can send messages to the content script and tell the content script about how to control a page. So that's what we're going to do. And yeah, so let's start writing some code on the pop.js. So what I'm going to do is, firstly and foremost, I am going to set some event listener on these buttons. So whenever we click on this button, they will send a message to the content script, which will scroll the web page. So here we go. So I'm just going to write a dummy function called send message. Let's assume that it will send our message to the script, right? So it will have a message and it will have a callback, and yeah, so this is the dummy function. And now I'm going to really write the event listeners. So firstly, foremost, I'm going to get all the speed control buttons. So speed controllers, basically controllers. And what I'm going to do is document.query selector all, and I'm going to get all the buttons which have a custom attribute called data-speed. So now I get access to all the buttons which have data speed, right? Like as a custom attribute. I'll do the same for the actions. So const state control. So I'm going to call it state. So state is like on or off state. So I'm going to do this, and instead of data state, I'm going to do data action here. I have both of these buttons. So I'm going to like loop through these elements, and then I'm going to add event listeners to them. So for example, what will happen when we click on them? So sorry for this. So for example, speed I think the spelling is not correct, so it should be speed controllers dot for each I get the controller, and then I'm going to add an event listener to it. So controller click, and then I'm going to send a message. So send a message, and inside send message, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an action called set speed, and then the speed will be controller dot get attribute. So get attribute is like a function from where we can get the custom attribute value, which will be get attribute data speed. So now imagine if I click on the slow one, it will give me the value in speed as slow, or if I click on medium, it will give me medium, or if I click on fast, it will give me fast. So that's the logic. And I'm going to do the same for the state controllers as well, right? So I can do the same thing, controller.add events and click, action set state, makes sense. state control getter attribute data action. So if I click on start, it will give me start, and if I click on stop, then it will give me stop, right? So this, I think this will work great. The only problem this have is the elements written from query selector, the value written from query selector is not an array, or at least not an iterable array. So we have to convert it into a iterable array so we can like run a for loop on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it inside a array.from call, and that will convert it into an array basically like this. The same thing I'm going to do here. So array.from document query sector did action, and then they are perfect. So now let's complete this send message function. So what we're going to do is, what we really have to do here is that pop-up have access to Chrome APIs. So what you can do is actually you can find which tab is active, and then you can like really send it the message. So what I'm going to do is Chrome dot, as it's showing me Chrome dot tabs dot query. So I'm going to query the tabs, and I'm going to say give me the tab which is active, true, and which is the current window as well. So it should not be like a different window, it should be the current window, and I'm going to set it to true, and then it's going to give me all the tabs. So I'm going to do I'm going to get them here, and it will be written like an array. Even like if it's a single tab, it will return an array. And then I'm going to do chrome dot tabs dot send message, and I'm going to get that tab ID. So tab 0, the first element of the tabs, and I'm going to get its ID. To this ID, I'm going to send the message, whatever I get inside the send message argument, and then I'm going to basically pass the callback. So we need the callback because whenever you do a chromes dot tabs dot send message, you really like need to like return a response. So which we will do there. We'll just return true there. So yeah, man, that's pretty much what we want to do in the popup.js. So what we really did here, to give a recap, is we got the speed controllers, the state controllers from the popup.html. We added events on them. So whenever we click on set like the speed buttons or the state buttons, it will basically send a message, and the message have like different actions, which we are going to listen in a content script. And we also created the send message function, which will take care of sending the message. So now let's create our content script. So now let's create the content script, which actually going to talk to the web page, right? So before we create that content script, we have to define it in the package.json. So the Chrome browser knows about it, right? So let's create a content script. So I'm going to define content scripts, and I'm going to define an array because you can have like multiple scripts and an object. And first thing we are going to define is matches. So basically matches is the criteria about which website you can basically inject this content script. I'm going to make it like every website instead of just YouTube. So I'm going to do something like this and this, and this basically tells Chrome browser to inject it everywhere. The other thing is we're going to define the file, which will be JS, which the property name is JS, and I'm going to name is it scroller.js. And the last thing is when we want to run it. So run at document add. Document add is basically when the whole page is loaded. So now we have defined our content script in the manifest.json. Let's create it in our code. So I'm going to create a file scroller.js, just going to check the name if that's right here. Yeah, and we're going to create this content script. So before we like start working on the actual logic, I'm going to define some constant like what will be the slow speed, medium speed, and fast speed. So const slow speed equals to 1, right? Const medium speed equals to 10, and then fast speed equal to maybe 30, right? So okay, now we have constant. I'm also going to define a global variable for current speed. So what is actually the current speed, so I'm just going to make it slow by default. And now let's write the listeners for the pop-up. So you have to understand and you have to keep in mind that the popup.js and the content script are two different files, and they are like running in two different environments, so they can't basically share the same context or share the same variable. So we have to do this messaging mechanism where we send message from popup whenever we click something, like click on a button, and then we have to put like a listener here which will take care of things, right? So now we are going to do this. So window dot onload equal to function. So when the window basically loads, I'm going to set up listener. So chrome dot runtime, this is the API provided by Chrome to extensions. So dot on message, whenever we get the message, add the listener, add a listener which have request, sender, send response. Request is like the message which we are sending from here, this message, right? This which we send here, and so I'm just going to name it message, and send response is the callback. So I'm just going to call the callback because we already have, like, always have to do that. So send response true, and then I'm going to put a switch here which will be message.action, message.action, right? Case set speed, and then I'm going to console.log just to see like if I get everything right. So I'll just call set speed to and message.payload. So payload is what we are getting from here, the payload action and the payload. So this is an action, this is a payload, the information that it carry, that is this. So I'm going to break it here, and then I'm going to do the same thing for state, and do the same thing, set state to message.payload, and then just break, right? And let's see if this works, right? I think it should, but yeah, let's check that out. I'm just going to go here and reload this extension, right? And I'm going to reload this page, and when I click on this, let's see what will happen. As you can see, it's not working, so maybe there is an error, and if there is an error, you can see it here. And if I click on this, it says uncoded array is not defined. So let me go in the pop direction. Oh yeah, I mean there are 3 R's, so let's just remove them. Go here, clear this, reload this extension, go here, reload the page. And now in the console, if I click on these, I'll get these consoles. So you see, like if I click on the medium, I'm getting medium. If I click on the slow, I'm getting slow, fast, same, start and stop, set state to start and stop, right? So it works. We are sending a message from pop-up, and we are getting that inside the content script, which is injected in the web page. So now we can control the web page using these buttons. So now in the scroller, so we all have everything, but what we really need is the scroll function, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to create a function called scroll, which takes in speed, By default, that will be slow speed if nothing is provided. And then I'm going to do window dot scroll by speed, right? So for example, scroll by is like how much pixels do you want to scroll the page, and this the first argument is this the x-axis. We don't want to scroll vertically, not horizontally, but we want to scroll vertically. That's why we're using the y, the speed. And but the problem with this is like it will only scroll once, but we don't want to scroll once. We want to scroll indefinitely until we click on the stop button, right? So we're going to put that mechanism, but before that I'm going to do a set timeout here, which like run every 10 milliseconds. So now what will happen is you call the scroll function and it will scroll and then again call itself in the 10 millisecond, and just it will just keep calling itself until we click on the stop button. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save its timeout ID. So current timeout equal to this. So whenever you have functions like set timeout and set interval, they give you like a clear ID. So they, that ID, using that ID, you can clear the timeouts or interval. And once you clear them, the logic inside it will not get executed, and hence stopping the scrolling. So we have this timeout, and we are going to get that, like create that function here. So I'm just going to do let, and by default it will be null. So now we have current timeout, scroll it. Current timeout is the set timeout, and it will like scroll every 10 millisecond. I'm going to create like a stop function so we can stop the scrolling. So stop, and what stop will do is just clear the timeout, right? So it will clear the current timeout and then set the current timeout as null, so like it will just set it as it was before the scrolling started. So now it cleared the timeout. That means once it cleared the timeout, then it will not going to call the scroll again, and hence the scrolling will be stopped. So now we have the stop function, but we don't actually call our start function yet. So let's do that. So we know that the payload that we get inside set speed is one of these, the slow, medium, and fast. So let's put a case over them. So now I'm going to put a nested switch here. Message dot payload in case slow, current speed equal to slow speed, right? And just break. And in case medium, current speed equal to medium, right? And then break. Break, and then we have case fast, and then break, right? So now we have this mechanism where we listen for the payload, we put a switch case on payload and see if what the user meant, like if they clicked on slow, medium, or fast, right? And according to that we set the speed. But after setting the speed, what we do is if there is a current timeout. So for example, if current timeout means like if the scrolling is already happening, stop that scrolling, right? And then start the scroll at this new speed. So for example, if it's running on fast scrolling, then stop that scrolling and change the scrolling to slow one and then restart it. So that's how the start is going to work. Let's see if that works, by going to our browser. So what we have to do is reload this extension multiple times and just reload this page like 1 or 2 times, and let's see if the scrolling really works. So I go here, I click on slow, and it says something's wrong. So it says error in event handler assignment to constant variable. That means we are assigning to a constant variable. In this case, it is current speed. So let's make it let. Let's go here, just go here, reload the page, and Just reload it once to be safe. I click on slow and nothing happens. I click on medium, nothing happens. I click on fast, nothing happens. So there is certainly something wrong. And the reason is the current timeout is null, and because the current timeout is null, it like never goes to these this piece of code. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the set state, which will actually help us start the functionality, right? So I'm going to put another nested switch here. So switch message dot payload case start. If start, just start the scrolling and just break it, and then if it stop, then just call the stop function and break, right? So as simple as that. If it start, just start scrolling. If it's break, just stop it. But the problem with start is, like, what if the scrolling is already on, right? Like, what if that's the case? So what we're gonna do is, if current timeout means if there is a value in the current timeout means we are scrolling, if current timeout is null means we are not scrolling. So if current time is already scrolling, don't do anything, just return. If you click on start, nothing will happen because it's already scrolling, and I think that will work as expected. So I'm going to go here, just click on reload, going to reload at least 2 times, and then I'm going to click here and just click on slow and then click on start, and as you can see, it will start scrolling the web page slowly. And then I click on medium and so I'll start scrolling me in the medium speed, and if I click on fast, it will start scrolling fast. I can click on stop to stop anytime, and then I can reset the speed and then click on start again. So yeah, man, guys, this is how you build a Chrome extension. Today we talked about the manifest, the pop-up, the icon, how to set up icon, right? And the difference between a pop-up and a content script. So content script gets executed in the context of the web page, but the pop-up have its own context. So if you want to communicate between them, you have to use the Chrome messaging system. Let me know what do you think about this, and I hope you guys like this. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.